Welcome back to True Crime PhD, where we take a deeper, more analytical look at the biggest criminal cases across the country. I'm your host, Trinity Moses, paralegal, investigative journalist, and true crime analyst. Today's episode is focused on the defense in Bryan Kohberger's case appears to be planning and several strategic angles the general public may not immediately recognize. If you think this is a cut-and-dry case heading straight to trial, think again. Let's get into it. The most obvious defense tactic we've seen so far is the delay strategy. Ann Taylor, Kohberger's lead public defender, has filed motions citing the need for more time due to ongoing discovery, missing digital data, and incomplete DNA processing from the prosecution. But here's the angle most people miss. Number 1, this isn't about buying time but about perception. As time goes on, witness memories fade, digital evidence ages, and media momentum slows. Every delay also gives the defense time to build reasonable doubt narratives, not just for court, but for potential jurors who've been absorbing media coverage for almost 2 years. What many don't realize is the central role of the DNA at the knife sheath and how the defense is dissecting its reliability. So, the FBI used genetic genealogy to match a familial link. The DNA found was touch DNA, a type that can be transferred indirectly. The defense's angle? They're setting up a foundation to argue contamination, secondary transfer, or lab error. Ann Taylor's filings mention the lack of chain of custody clarity, missing lab reports, and inconsistent documentation, potentially opening the door to a Fry or Daubert challenge, where the admissibility of the science behind the DNA could be argued. And here's something the average viewer doesn't catch. They're also hinting that the sheath could have been planted, or at least mishandled. That's a high-risk claim, but not unheard of in defense playbooks. Another major clue. The defense is targeting how the investigation unfolded. They've requested full access to body cam footage, all training records for responding officers, and internal communications between agencies. Why? If they can prove that law enforcement rushed, missed leads, or showed confirmation bias, they'll argue that the entire case was built on a flawed foundation. This could lead to suppression motions or, at the very least, increased juror skepticism. Also, let's not forget the surveillance of Kohberger prior to his arrest. His defense has raised questions about the legality of some of that tracking. If any part of it is ruled unconstitutional, it could threaten key pieces of the case. Here's where it gets especially interesting. The defense recently secured funding for a second psychiatric evaluation. Why does that matter? While Kohberger hasn't pled insanity, evidence of mental illness could weaken the motive narrative, add complexity to his intent, influence sentencing, especially if the death penalty is on the table. Notably, solitary confinement conditions and prescription medications could be used as supporting evidence of deterioration, not just for trial prep, but also for the court of public opinion. They're setting up to challenge the jury selection process itself. Expect heavy questioning during voir dire about exposure to media, understanding of forensic evidence, and personal beliefs about capital punishment. They may even try to introduce jury consultants to select individuals more skeptical of state power or forensic certainty. As this case unfolds, remember, the defense doesn't have to prove who did it. They only need to create reasonable doubt. And in a high-profile case like this, their strategy is just as psychological as it is legal. As this case unfolds, remember, the defense doesn't have to prove who did it. They only need to create reasonable doubt. And in a high-profile case like this, their strategy is just as psychological as it is legal. Let me know in the comments. Do you think these tactics will sway the jury? Or is the evidence against Kohberger too overwhelming? If you found this breakdown insightful, hit like, subscribe, and click all on the bell for more expert analysis. This is True Crime PhD, and I'll see you on our next update.